Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Good morning. Ooh. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Parivajakacharya Astottara Satya Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Parivajakacharya Astottara Satya Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Devami Swami Jai Purvraksham Cha Bhakta Charmadinata Bhartatapi Karanyam Yasasavya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavad Paschataresha Tarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the king of all books, the Grantaraj. Canto 5, Chapter 14. The material world is the great forest of enjoyment. Pardon my sinuses today. Text number 32. Herein, Jad Bharat is speaking to the king, Maharaj Rahugana, after he had his cathartic enlightenment experience in his presence. And now he's describing this material world using an allegory of a forest. And in the last few verses, he's comparing all of us to monkeys. I shouldn't say all of us, but we might find some sort of sympathy and fraternity with the creatures being described here. But just know that this is all for our benefit, to learn how to become human and to become Krishna conscious humans. So text number 32 says, Kvachit drumavad aihikarteshu griheshu ramsyan yatha vanaraha suttadara vatsala vyavala kshanaha. Word for word translation says, Kvachit, sometimes, drumavat, like trees, as monkeys jump from one tree to another, the conditioned soul transmigrates from one body to another. Aihika arteshu, simply to bring about better worldly comforts. Grihe, in houses or bodies. Ramksyan, delighting in one body after another, either in animal life, human life, or demigod life. So even if you were in a demigod body right now, still Jad Bharat would be comparing us to monkeys. That's all right. It means that we all have something to work on here. Yata, exactly as Vanaraha, the monkey. Suttadara Vatsalaha, very affectionate to children and wife. Vyavaya Kshanaha, whose leisure time is spent in sex pleasure. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Just as a monkey jumps from one tree to another, the conditioned soul jumps from one body to another. As the monkey ultimately is ultimately captured by the hunter and is unable to get out of captivity, the conditioned soul, being captivated by momentary sex pleasure, becomes attached to different types of bodies and is engaged in family life. Family life affords the conditioned soul a festival of momentary sex pleasure, and thus he is completely unable to get out of the material clutches. Here's a phrase many of us can write down and put on your refrigerator or your bathroom mirror. Family life affords the conditioned soul a festival of momentary sex pleasure. Doesn't sound too bad, right? Anyway, wait to read the purport before commenting. The purport, Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada says, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, chapter 9, text number 29, this is the Avaduta Brahmana speaking. You might remember the Avaduta Brahmana. He says, Vishaya kalu sarvatasya, bodily necessities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, are all very easily available in any form of life. It is stated here that the Vanara, monkey, is very much attracted to sex. Each monkey keeps at least 24 wives. I wonder what defines a monkey wife versus a monkey girlfriend. We need to do a bit more research into the intricacies of monkey social dynamics, but he keeps at least 24 wives, and he jumps one tree to another to capture the female monkeys. Thus, he immediately engages in sexual intercourse. In this way, the monkey's business is to jump from one tree to another and enjoy sex with his wives. The conditioned soul is doing the same thing, transmigrating from one body to another and engaging in sex. So here Jad Bard is comparing our changing of bodies as significant as a monkey jumping from one tree to another. Anyone who's been around monkeys has seen that they go back and forth. It's not so significant. Well, from the perspective, the great sages like Jad Bard, our changing body from this one to that one and enjoying new sexual partners is not very significant. He thus completely forgets how to become free from the clutches of material engagement. Sometimes the monkey is captured by a hunter who sells its body to doctors so that its glands can be removed for the benefit of another monkey. All this is going on in the name of economic development and improved sex life. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Another stunning purport from His Divine Grace. He's never afraid to pull back the curtain of illusion and just reveal exactly how crude and barbaric often is its material existence. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Tadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. There's not many who would be so bold as to say this, because verily, you can't say this with sincerity, with sincere concern for human beings who suffer and act like monkeys, unless you actually have transcended this. Our Srila Prabhupada is beyond reproach, beyond criticism in regards to sexual impropriety, which is a very rare feat in the Kali Yuga. There are many reasons why our Srila Prabhupada is remarkable, really incomparable. But one thing that we've seen time and time again, even for great social benefactors and religious reformers and spiritual inspirations, that even though their message may be true and helpful, time and time again, we see so many become corrupted by sexual misdemeanor or even felony. It's cliche to even say it these days. I don't even have to list the names. We just know of so many examples, not just in spiritual circles, but in academia and politics. Here at Penn State, of course, is very famous for many, many, many instances of sexual indiscretion. But Srila Prabhupada, remarkably, no one can say anything that could even slightly suggest that Prabhupada was not fully in control of his of the sex propensity. And so therefore he can say this, and therefore we should appreciate him saying it, even though it might strike us as quite critical, especially looking around the digital room here. I see a lot of younger people who are just beginning relationships. So it might strike us as a bit, but actually Prabhupada can say this, and we should appreciate that because he was flawless in controlling his sexual activity, that therefore he has the right to make this criticism. So let's receive the value of this instruction. It is valuable. What we should note from the last line of the verse, this great statement here: family life affords the conditioned soul a festival of momentary sex pleasure. It sounds not bad. I wouldn't mind a festival of momentary sex pleasure, but what is the problem? The problem is this word momentary. According to the strict scriptural definitions, it's the momentariness, it's the brevity of pleasure in this world that makes it asat, not real, and certainly not worthwhile. There is pleasure there, obviously. That's why people are pursuing it, spending a lot of money on it, reading books about it. There's certainly pleasure. We can't just say, oh, there's no pleasure. But it's the momentariness, it's the short-lived nature of that pleasure that the great bhakti yogis look upon and say, this is asat. It's not worth it. I watch my children playing with toys, and of course kids have thousands of little pieces of plastic, right? This house is already 1,000. I've never bought my kids toys. You just receive it all the time. A million little pieces of plastic junk, right? They play with this one and they play with that one. And my kids, being almost 6 and 3, they're at that age where as soon as one of them has a particular toy in its hand, the other one, suddenly I need that toy. And then they fight over it and they cry over it. And I have to come in and, be the judge, jury, and executioner of who gets to play with this little piece of plastic. And then they forget about it. 30 seconds later, they just totally forget, and they're hugging and they're playing and they're having fun. And so the parents, we look at this behavior of the children, and we think, this is so ridiculous. It's just such a temporary thing. It's so momentary. You have this toy, and then you switch to this one, you switch to that one. monkeys in the trees jumping from this branch to that branch and think, what is the significance of one tree over another? This monkey is just going back and forth. But what's the difference between us? In the span, the very short lifespan of 80, 90, 100 years, to have one set of toys, get this house, this partner who I engage in a festival of momentary sex pleasure with. I don't know about festival, but sometimes there is some pleasure with sexual activity, whether it is crude, involving, the interplay of the genitals, or even in a more subtle way, enjoying the ego satisfaction, the mind and emotional satisfaction. Still, according to Judd Bart, it's not much different, not much more significant than the monkey jumping from one tree to another. We change from one body to another, enjoying sex pleasure here and enjoying sex pleasure there. It is the brevity that we should be very concerned with and recognize that therefore it cannot be sat, it cannot be true, because it changes. Sometimes even in this lifetime, we're changing partners over and over and over again. And so it cannot be considered sat. I'm not saying that a relationship cannot be sat. We can have married relationships or friendly relationships that are sat. They are spiritually enlivening. Partnerships and enlightenment. That's the sort of relationship we should pursue, and that is sat, because in fact, permanent. There's a partnership in which the couple, whether it be lovers or friends or even parents and children, if that relationship is based on hearing and chanting about Krishna, encouraging and inspiring others to serve Krishna, then the effect of that interaction is permanent throughout many lifetimes until one ultimately transcends material existence entirely. So we should definitely have relationships. There's no doubt about that. But the festival of momentary sex pleasure, it is asat. Therefore, we should be prepared to give it up. Got to be prepared to give it up. Why is it so fascinating anyway? Before we beat ourselves up, literally or metaphorically, let's have some sympathy for ourselves, because there's a reason why we are so fascinated with sexual activity, which is really interestingly explained by His Divine Grace in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 7, text number 7 in the purport. Prabhupada helps us to get to the core of this issue. What is this male and female thing? For the sake of simplicity, we'll just talk about heterosexual attraction. Well, what is it? What's driving us mad? Like these monkeys. Why are we so comparable to the monkeys? Prabhupada says in this very interesting purport, first canto, chapter 7, text number 7, he says, the ultimate result of devotional service is to develop genuine love for the Supreme Personality. Love is a word which is often used in relation with man and woman. And love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate the relation between Lord Krishna and the living entities. The living entities are mentioned as Prakriti in the Bhagavad Gita, and in Sanskrit, Prakriti is a feminine object. The Lord is always described as the Parama Purusha, or the supreme male personality. Thus, the affection between the Lord and the living entities is something like that between the male and the female. Therefore, the term love of Godhead is quite appropriate. This is a bit esoteric, but according to the Shastra, we are all female, feminine, Prakriti, to give pleasure to the male, the supreme male, Parama Purusha, the supreme Lord, Krishna. The reason why we experience some sort of fascination with sexual activity in this world is because it's a reflection of our propensity to please Krishna. What is the part that we get wrong in this world? Is that we're trying to be pleased by someone else's body. We size up another person's body, look them up head to toe. The men especially know what I'm talking about. It's almost habitual. It's very hard to overcome this nature. A man looks head to toe, sizing up. Ooh, there could be some pleasure derived from this body if I just squeeze it in the right way. But before I squeeze in the right way, I gotta say all sorts of sweet nothings, all sorts of pillow talk. And then maybe I can squeeze some pleasure out of this person's body for me, for my body. And this is pathetic. This is pathetic and it is desperate. Mm-hmm. But the reason why we're so drawn to that, the reason why it seems to be so deep in the core of our being, is that actually it's our nature as prakriti, as jiva, to have very affectionate, intimate relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but as the giver of pleasure. This is something that's still hard for us to understand when we hear about Krishna's intimate relationship with certain devotees, the gopis, headed by Srimati Radharani. It's hard for us to understand because we're comparing it with our own bodies. In fact, just yesterday, I was reading with one friend, Abdullah. We were reading Krishna book, chapter 24, I think, the gopis being bewildered by the flute song of Krishna. Here he is in Saudi Arabia reading about God dancing with the gopis. You could be hanged for that sort of thing. Anyway, so we're reading together about how the gopis are just, when they hear the song of Krishna's flute, you know, their clothes become loosened, their hair falls down. It's just, there's a strong desire to please Krishna that can be compared to lust. What is it that Narada Muni says? Oh, such a good verse. Give me a moment. Gopya kaman bayat kamso dveshach chaidhyadyo dveshach chaidyadayo nripaha sambandhad vrishnaya snehad yuyam bhaktya vayam vibho. That's not the one. Yeah, it is. Narada Muni says to Yudhishthira that the gopis, they have a lusty desire to serve Krishna. Gopya kaman bayat kamso. They attained perfection by this lust to serve Krishna. Like Kamsa attained perfection by his fear. Shishupal and other kings by their enmity, their envy. They all got a chance to be close to Krishna. The gopis are described as being lusty, kaman. They're lusty for Krishna. But the part that's so hard for us to understand is that they have a lust to please Krishna, not to be pleased. Even when they speak such things like, oh, Krishna, you know, we to be touched by you, we long to be held by you, please, you know, our life will die without you. Even when they speak in a way which sounds familiar to us, it sounds like some pop song. The part that's hard for us to understand is that they say that only because it gives Krishna pleasure. They don't actually have an inclination to try to enjoy for themselves. Their obsession is only to give Krishna pleasure. It's not a festival of momentary sex pleasure. It's an eternity of satisfying Krishna. But when we hear about Krishna and the gopis, the intimate relationship, as Prabhupada said, the love of God between the Parama Purusha and the Prakriti, the supreme masculine and the feminine. When we hear about that, we compare it with our very limited, very frustrated experience in this world. Well, I know about sex. It's often challenging and it's frustrating and the energy involved. Then there's the downside, the pain, the anger, the violence. And so we think, well, is Krishna doing the same thing? It's very hard for us to understand what the gopis are doing, what Krishna is doing, so long as we are embodied. so long as we are still affected by a bodily concept of life. That's why Srila Prabhupada was always very cautious, very careful to not indulge in speaking about Krishna and the gopis, because if we have a bodily concept of life, we compare Krishna and the gopis with our own experience, then we can't understand. Although actually it's the most transcendental thing. Shukadeva Goswami says, Vrikriditam vrajavadubir idam cha Vishnu shadan vitana shunayad attavarnayad. Yeah? What's the next line? Bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhya kaman. Vrikriditam vrajavadubir idam cha shadan vitana shunayad attavarnayad. Can't remember the third line. He says that this dalliance of loving affairs between Krishna and the Vrajavadu, the married women of Vrindavan, it's we're talking about Vishnu here. We're talking about that same Supreme Personality of Godhead that he's described throughout the previous 9 cantos as being the cause of all causes, the origin and the end of everything. He's saying that same Vishnu is having these vikriditam, very loving, affectionate, intimate affairs with the Vrajavadu, the wives of Vrindavan. The one who can understand that, who can eliminate the kama, the selfish, lusty desire in their heart, and attain param bhagavati pratilabhya, the highest level of devotion. The person who can attain the highest level of devotion by hearing about Krishna and the gopis is that one who hears with faith. Chadanvitadanashanayad, hearing with faith from the parampara, from the authority. We are so fortunate that we have access to such an authority in his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, so that we can take the medicine. The medicine is the Gopi Bhava. The medicine is the Rasa Leela. The medicine is 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna is engaging in loving pastimes with all of his devotees, and particularly with the gopis, which is the highest expression of devotion to God. That is the medicine. But it's not the sort of medicine that you can just go down to the drugstore and buy it yourself. You need to get the prescription from the doctor. That's one who hears with faith. Then the medicine will work. So we hear through his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, and we can be confident that it work, and that the kama in our heart, the lust to try to enjoy another person's body, squeeze a little pleasure out of their organs, organ clasping. That's what my spiritual master said to me once. Life is full of organ clasping. We want to get over that propensity, that desire to squeeze somebody's organs, and to instead awaken param bhagavati bhakti, the highest sentiment of love of God. And we must take that medicine as prescribed from the doctor, hearing and chanting exactly as Srila Prabhupada has described Rasa Leela, Gopi Bhava. Then we can be confident that the transformation can happen. And we'll be free from this monkey life, jumping between bodies, jumping between different lovers, different partners. This is how the devotees pray. Yuvatinam yata yuni, yunam cha yuvatao yata manobiramate tadvan manome ramatam tvai. All the brahmacharis know this verse. It's the sort of verses we all contemplate to try to really actualize. Just as the minds of young girls take pleasure in young boys, and young boys take pleasure in young girls, kindly allow my mind to take pleasure in you alone. Just as yata. Yata means in the same way. That's the end result of bhakti, in the same way. Spontaneous. We all know what it's like. Maybe some of us can't remember. We're getting on in years, getting a little long in the tooth, but we might remember we went through puberty, and then suddenly the opposite sex is just like, wow. It's so natural. It's so spontaneous. It's so engaging. It's so powerful. It's so exciting to see a potential mate. You just go crazy for it, especially at the time of puberty when it's all very new and we don't know how to, keep it under wraps. So it's like, wow. So this is saying in the exact same way, we should feel love of God, spontaneous, engaging, exciting, and entrancing. Can't help but jump into service for Krishna, lusty for devotional service. That's what we should feel. Lusty for devotional service. I gotta have it. I just gotta get that devotional service. I just gotta show Krishna how much I love him. Many of us know what it's like to feel lust for someone's body. I gotta have it. Become like a monkey or a donkey or any other, pick your animal. But we should feel lusty for devotional service. I gotta have it. I need it. So that's what Prabhupada's getting at in that purport of first canto, chapter 7, text number 7. Really, this is the feeling between the living entity and the Lord. We're all Prakriti. We're all Prakriti. Feminine, really. And Krishna is the Parama Purusha, the supreme male. We're meant to have an extremely engaging, intimate, affectionate infatuation with the Lord. But this is something which is not common throughout religious traditions because the prerequisite is you got to completely be over the bodily concept of life, and you must hear very faithfully from an authoritative source. That's why it's uncommon. That's why it's so rare. And most of us even aren't in that category of being free from the bodily concept of life and hearing very faithfully from an authority. Even amongst us, it's rarely understood completely. So what to speak of for other religious traditions who have very, very little concept of that. As Abdullah was telling me yesterday, of course, he practiced Islam his whole life, growing up in Saudi Arabia. And he said people just have no idea of God like this. They can't even begin to imagine. It's very uncommon. So therefore, how special are we to be able to hear from Srila Prabhupada, who's delivering that medicine? We should cherish that medicine, take it very carefully by hearing and chanting about Krishna. And Prabhupada has given us the medicine. Do not buy into the criticism of envious people who claim that, well, Prabhupada is always just talking about how you're not the body and all this sort of institutional stuff, and he didn't really get into the Gopi Bhava. Come on, Srila Prabhupada has us singing Gopi Bhava songs every day. The Tulasi Kirtan, it's a Gopi Bhava song, praying to be a servant of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, to be able to see their loving pastimes at all times. It's praying for the experience of Gopi Bhava, Gopi service. Singing Jai Radha Madhava, it's a very intimate song. The Kunja Bihari, the Kunja is only for the gopis. Well, I don't know that for certain. Maybe there are some pastimes where boys are often engaged there, but generally speaking, Krishna is there. He's in the Kunja, the forest groves by the bank of the Jamuna. He's enjoying with the gopis. So when we're singing Jai Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari, it's enjoying in the forest groves, little flower powers and little like domiciles that they create within the willow trees and the different beautiful natural environments of Vrindavan. It's where the Krishna and the gopis are enjoying loving words and intimacy. So we're praying to have that service. Prabhupada has given us plenty of Gopi Bhava to contemplate, to appreciate, to understand. And if we have that inclination, if we're really ready to take that medicine, then we will be attracted to it. It's not that Srila Prabhupada has denied us something. Just put it there, and those who are really at that level, they will be attracted to it. Not falsely, not imitating. Well, let me just jump to 10th canto, chapter 30 of Srimad Bhagavatam and just hear about Krishna and the gopis because I heard that's the best, so let me just go for it. No, when one is ready, they will naturally be spontaneously attracted to hearing and chanting about that particular mood. That's stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that even though one still externally performs all of the functions of a sadhana bhakta, doing all the ritual, doing all the routine. Within their heart, they're cultivating a particular mood, following in the footsteps of a particular resident of Vrindavan, and in that way becoming prepared to serve Radha and Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. So that happens within the heart space, not externally by dressing as some gopi, like some other people do. So the medicine is there. How fortunate are we that we have this medicine delivered to us by His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. I'm going to finish with one point. Dear devotees, Krishna consciousness is so exciting. And Krishna's Leela with the gopis is especially so exciting. But we might feel like, well, why am I not drawn to it? If this is the topmost medicine, if the Prakrititam Vrajavadu Bir, if that's really the highest thing, why is it that I'm still not, head over heels for it? Why am I still affected by this materialism? Sometimes we might have heard all of Krishna's Leelas as described in Srimad Bhagavatam or in other authorized Vaishnava literatures. We might start to think, well, I've heard it all, but it's good. But is there anything new? Are there any new Leelas? I need something more, Why am I not fully absorbed in these ones? Why do I need something more? There is one more Leela going on. According to Brahma, I'm going to finish with a very esoteric interpretation of a very esoteric verse. So just bear with me. Krishna, in all of his Leelas, he always wins, right? He always gets the girl. He always beats the demons. We can be a little bit forlorn, thinking, well, where's the challenge in that? When we hear some story, some mundane story, or some Hollywood generated story, or now I guess it'll be AI generated stories coming out of Hollywood soon. There has to be a potential for the hero to lose, right? That's what makes it exciting. That's where the drama is. We don't know. Is he going to win? Is he going to get the girl? Is he going to conquer over evil? There has to be some potential for the hero to lose, for there to be that exciting, entrancing drama. So we might think, well, with Krishna's Leela, I've heard them all, but he always wins, and still I'm attracted to this material world. Isn't there anything else that Krishna is doing? According to Brahma, there is one other Leela. And Krishna might not win in this particular battle. Brahma says, you'd think I'd remember the verse, Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jayatya Jasram. Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. Sorry, I found it. Lord Brahma, he says, Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manashu Yapraninam Pratipalam Smaratam Upetya. Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jayatya Jasram Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. He says that there's a Leela of this material world. We're obsessed with the latest political drama, or what pop stars are doing or not doing, or what's going on here and there. It's a sort of Leela. But Krishna's Leela conquers over all of the Leela of this material world. Leela Yatanani Jayatya Jasram. Jayata. Krishna's sweetness, his holy name, his qualities and his times. Brahma says it's victorious over the Leela of this material world. But not necessarily so. Not necessarily so. We might still become infatuated with this material world. It's not guaranteed that Krishna, having endowed us all with free will, is going to win our heart. We know that he's going to beat Aghasara, Vritrasara. Not Vritrasara. What's his name now? The tornado demon. Trinavarta, sorry. We already know that he's going to defeat those demons. We know that he's going to conquer over Shishupal, Jayataha. So we say Jai Shri Krishna. We know that he's going to be victorious in getting the gopis, meeting with them. So we say Jaya Shri Krishna. He's always conquering. Jaya, victory. But it is not 100% guaranteed that he's going to be victorious in winning our heart back to him. That is not 100% guaranteed. So Brahma is saying there's a lot of drama in this. Lilayatena bhuvanani jayati jasha. That the Krishna is contemplated by those devotees, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, it's contemplated, smaratam upetya, is remembered and contemplated by great devotees, and he may be victorious in conquering over the leela of this material world, or he may not. So dear devotees, this is some drama that we can be very excited about. Will Krishna win my heart? We know that he's won all of the gopis. We know that he's won all the residents of Vrindavan. But if by hearing and chanting about Krishna, can he also win my heart? This is the Leela that we should be very, very interested in. If he does, then, as is said by Shukadeva Goswami, will finally be relieved. Kamam hridrogam ashvapahinot acharena dhira. Finally, that selfishness, that selfish, lusty desire in the heart, that disease of the heart will be removed. And bhakti param bhagavati pratilabhya. One will attain the highest mellows of love of God. It's not 100% guaranteed, but Krishna is trying. We need to hear with faith from the authorized source, from our Srila Prabhupada, lest we spend many, many lifetimes like the monkey, jumping from tree to tree, from lover to lover. We have so many better things to do in devotional service. Hare Krishna. I will stop there and ask if anyone wants to comment something or ask some questions. Feeling courageous. I don't know, what is the finish time now? I know we're supposed to stop at 7:45, but it doesn't seem like the arati is going on in the temple room, so I don't know. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that I've delivered this verse and purport in a way that we can feel some encouragement, that there is a real solution. We don't have to just be like monkeys jumping around lifetime, but that there's a lot of potential for our propensity to have intimate, loving relationship in Krishna. All right.
Hare Krishna.
Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hey, I would like to thank you for a nice class.
Thank you for listening.
I am generally in agreement. I have one point of contention. You say that with regards to your sex life, that there is some pleasure there. And I would assert that in order to think that there is pleasure there, you have to be covered by ignorance and illusion. Because when you see the bigger picture, you understand that actually it's not pleasure, it's actually suffering. And this is supported all over in Shastra. It's the view of Srimad Bhagavatam in general, that the happiness or the pleasure of sex life is said to be false happiness, not only because it's temporary and insignificant, but because it is always unavoidably always coupled with misery. And because it's mixed in that way, it has to be regarded as suffering, because suffering can't be separated from it. So sukha dukkha, these two words are often combined together because within the scope of material nature, they are inseparable. They're two sides of a coin. For example, I'll give you some examples here. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 23rd chapter, here's an excerpt from the purport there. It says, by cultivating bodily happiness, we are forced to accept bodily pain. Foolish, conditioned souls endeavor to eliminate distress and enjoy happiness, but material happiness and distress are two sides of the same coin. One cannot relish bodily happiness without identifying oneself with the body. But as soon as such identification occurs, one is harassed by the innumerable pains and sufferings also inevitably present within the same body. So that's one way in which there's a coupling of the pleasure and pain, that in order to enjoy any material pleasure, you have to descend to the bodily platform. As soon as you are on the bodily platform, means birth, old age, disease, and death, so many sufferings. So that's one way to look at it. But additionally, oh gosh, there's so many examples, so little time. Second canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, third chapter, text 19. Everyone's familiar with, no, sorry. Yes, no, it is that verse. Hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, right? So camel thinks he's enjoying the thorns, is eating the thorns. That's a miserable experience. What he's enjoying the taste of his own blood, the blood in his mouth from eating the thorns. He's cutting his mouth. He's thinking this is very enjoyable, but actually it's suffering, but he's in ignorance of what's going on. Then the ass wants to enjoy sex life with the she-ass. As soon as he approaches the she-ass, her immediate impulse, instinctively, she kicks. He approaches her from behind and she kicks. He gets hard hooves in the face, his jaw broken, skin and flesh torn. Very miserable experience, but that's a natural part of sex life for the ass. And it is in the human species, there are also unavoidable sufferings that are coupled with the enjoyment of sex life. Women don't necessarily kick us in the face, although they might. There are other things that happen unavoidably. So, and this Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, he describes, says, pure knowledge, pure renunciation, and pure devotional service are one and the same. Srimad Bhagavatam does not deal with any subject matter that enhances our sense gratification. It considers material happiness and distress two sides of the same coin. Striving for material happiness inevitably brings distress. That's from Amritavani. I think that's number 38 in Amritavani. And in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 9th chapter, everyone's familiar with text 45. Yan Maintunadi Grihamedi Sukam Hitucham Kandu Yanena Karayor Eva Dukam. So not just Tucham, not just insignificant, but also Dukam, subject to various types of material miseries. Says sex life is compared to the rubbing of two hands to relieve an itch. Grihamedis, so-called grihastas, who have no spiritual knowledge, think that this itching is the greatest platform of happiness, although actually it is a source of distress. So that's the version of Srimad Bhagavatam. We think it's happiness, but it's actually a source of distress. I could go on all day. There's a million examples, but that's the philosophy. That's the position of Srimad Bhagavatam. That it's only under the illusion, made possible by a covering of ignorance that what is actually miserable appears to be pleasurable. So that's my point of contention, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you once again for a nice treatment of the topic of Gopi Bhava, and for your class in general. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Tiger Brewer. You said that women don't kick the men after sex, but some people are into that. There are some people, you can pay a lot of money and you can get that sort of experience. There's all variety of strange sexual perversion these days. So yes, there are some getting the donkey treatment. I just remember there's one point I wanted to make from the very end of the purport of this Bhagavatam verse. Prabhupada says, all this is going on in the name of economic development and improved sex life. And those two are synonymous. Like the only reason we have economic development is because there's so much sex life. If we all just lost interest in mating, like what would we buy? Men wouldn't buy anything. So they really are hand in hand. We have to recognize that that's problematic. Any other comments someone wants to throw in there? Is it interesting discussion today? I can understand if everyone's a little shy on the topic. That's fine. But just know that it's all right to be challenged by this, and we can support each other. I would just like to say, especially to the younger devotees out there, that we don't have to feel that any amount of challenge disqualifies you from trying to be Krishna conscious, and you have lots of people who can support you if you need. And I'm not sure if I'm the person to do that, but I would try to help if I could, or there's so many others. If you're struggling with relationship or with sexual desire, please don't feel like you have to just, like you've failed somehow in Krishna consciousness. There's lots of devotees who've gone through the same thing, and we're happy to try to be a source of support. So it is a sensitive topic for many, but you got a lot of friends on your side. Just remember that. Hare Krishna. Guess we'll finish there. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.